Warren Riffey was born on May 16, 1921 in Virden, Illinois. He spent his days on his family's farm until he and 6 friends decided to enlist in the Army. He was sent to Mississippi for boot camp and infantry basic training. When asked about his boot camp experiences, he recalls a time where his unit was in grave danger.
Oh, the most scary moment, we were taking hand grenade training, and we had a company of the squad got in the trench, and everybody was given a hand grenade. So you get that, and you pull the pin out, and you throw it, you know, and then you duck down in the trench. Well, we did pretty good till one time this guy just froze. He just went back like that, and he couldn't let the grenade go. So what did we do? We scrambled the heck out of there. And the army, this buck sergeant come down there and grabbed him by there and took it away from him, held the pin on. That was scary.
After basic training, Riffey traveled to New York by train. On the way, he and his unit were in an unfortunate accident.
Going over, we went by train from a camp in Louisiana. We took a train, and we got to the border of Mississippi, and we had a train wreck. And 5 cars went over, and the one I was in turned over on its side, and of course we all fell, your duffel bags, your rifles, and all that stuff, and we fell over to the ground, of course, put my foot right through a window and didn't get a scratch. And guess what? It started raining, the lights went out, and what did we do the next day? They had us out there marching, training, waiting for another train.
While traveling to Africa, Riffey's ship had several close calls with German submarines.
We left New York. Took us 13 days to get to North Africa because we had to zigzag the ship from the German submarines. And that was an anxious moment. We got about 200 miles from shore, and a German submarine got after us. But they didn't hit anybody because our destroyers got after them, and they left.
In Africa, Riffey was in the 473rd Infantry. The 473rd was called a bastard regiment because they were placed wherever they were needed. Shortly after their arrival, Riffey and the 473rd had a memorable first experience.
Well, we landed at night, and we got off the boat, and we marched 5 miles through a city there in Algiers, in North Africa. And when we went up across this hilltop, that's where we stopped, you know, and they said, well, dig in here and pitch your combat stuff. They said, you got a tent there, and you pitch your tents here, 2 men to a tent. So we got them out, and we started digging, broke all the pegs off. We got tired doing that, and we just rolled up in it and went to sleep. Next morning, it was all rock. That's why we broke all the wooden pegs, pitched tents with.
In Africa, Riffey served under General George Patton, although he never saw much of him. Riffey's unit followed tanks, which was a job that they hated.
We didn't like the tanks. The infantry, when we were in Italy then later, you know, you dig in the lines, you're behind trenches and in your foxhole. And here come the tanks rolling up. And they shoot the artillery, you know. Shoot a lot of it over there. And then they turn around and leave. Well, we get the incoming fire, mortar shells and artillery. We didn't like tanks.
While he was away, Riffey was able to keep in touch with his family through letters and V-mail.
You write your letter, and they just take a picture of it, condense it, and then just kind of like a postcard. and then they send it on. Of course, they look them over and they might cut some stuff out of it that you wasn't supposed to, in case it fell in the enemy hands.
After their job was finished in Africa, the 473rd was then sent to Italy, where their unit spent the winter. They then participated in the Battle for Cassino that lasted for 30 days.
The Battle Casino in Italy, there was this big casino where they bombed and strafed and bombed for 30 days. And then we'd go up there and they were still there in the tunnels and foxholes and stuff. So we'd fall back, and then the planes come over, the Air Force, and they bombed them again. And it took 30 days to take that monastery, because they were dug in and the bombs didn't affect them. We had to go root them out.
After the battle, Riffey was able to have some fun. Rome was declared an open city, so he and his unit were able to go and explore.
And we come off the line, so we went back into Rome and had some fun. And we went through the Colosseum, and that's an amazing place. Also, we went up top of the Tower of Pisa, the one where you look out, it's leaning, you can't see the base of the... And the elevators were broke, so we had to walk the steps all the way up the top. And other than that, just went swimming in Mussolini's private swimming pool. That was the highlight.
On April 7th, 1945, Riffey was wounded in the right leg and ankle.
I got hit with the German mortar shell, blew my helmet off, lost my rifle, and there was 3 of us got hit with that, and we just crawled around behind the great big rock and waited it out, and it turned out we was there all night long.
Riffey was hit by an 88 millimeter mortar shell, which he describes here.
Well, it's one that, it's an 80 millimeter shell. It's about that long, about that big around, and they kind of shoot out of a tube.
He was then sent to Pisa for surgery. Following Pisa, he was relocated to Naples, where he spent the remainder of the war. When the war was over, he traveled from Naples to Rome, and on the way, Mount Vesuvius erupted. He had to remain in Italy for 6 months guarding prisoners because there weren't ships to take them home.
We were the oldest veterans over there. And when the war ended, the replacements and recruits that come over got to go back first. They took all the boats, and they were going to go on to Japan. Well, it lucked out that the war ended in Japan before they had a chance to go, so we were stuck in Italy. And we was there for 6 months before we got a boat. And we guarded prisoners in camp, prison camp.
When he finally returned home, he found that it was quite easy to readjust to civilian life. Soon after he returned, he met and married his wife and had a son.
I met my wife in the bowling alley in Marten, and I can say that we've got our 60th wedding anniversary coming up.
Riffey then re-enlisted, hoping he would be sent to Italy, but he was instead sent to Germany, where he served in the 18th Infantry, 1st Division. His unit was the honor guard for the Forum building in Frankfurt, Germany. While in Germany, Riffey played in the regimental football team.
And we got over there, and I tried out for the football team, in the regimental football team, and I made it. So 6 months out of the year we spent going around playing other units in football. We'd play the Air Force and the Engineers and all that. We were the Frankfurt Vanguards, and we got to the championship game, which was with the Berlin Bears in Berlin, and we got beat 7-0 in the rain. Of course, football season lasts 6 months out of the year. For 6 months, we just went back to the company once a month to get our check. And we got a lot of traveling. We went to Austria, played down there, went to Berlin and other different German cities. But the most important, we went to Austria, that was in Russian territory. And we were going, this was nighttime, we were on the train, and we got stopped at the border. Well, here come 2 Russian guards, and there was submachine guns. And if you didn't have a pass, they'd kick you off the train. And that was interesting. But we did have passes signed by the general.
After his stint in Germany, Riffey returned to his home in Verdun. He was glad to return home because it was difficult to be away from his family for so long.
A lot of the guys got homesick, and I didn't let it take over. If you let it go, it'll get you. So I didn't.
In 1950, Riffey re-enlisted and spent 1 year serving in Korea before he returned home for good. John Riffey received many awards for his service in World War II and the Korean War.
Got about 10 medals altogether. Well, I got Purple Heart from my wound and occupational medal, sharpshooter's medal, just different things like that.
Mr. Riffey reminisces on the most difficult part of his time serving in the United States Army.
Being away from home, a lot of the boys got homesick, and also just trying to stay alive.
We would like to thank Mr. John Riffey for coming and sharing his experiences from World War II and the Korean War. We learned much more from his story than we would have learned from just reading about these events from a textbook. Because of his story, we got more of a personal version of events that took place. We learned of the ways that the troops coped with homesickness and loneliness and the way that it felt to be fighting for the safety of millions of human beings. Because these stories were retold by someone who was there, we get a greater meaning from World War II. Mr. Riffey and the thousands of other men who participated in the war helped to keep our country safe and to help millions of people, even if it wasn't in a huge way. We learned that you don't have to participate in a major battle to be considered a hero. Everyone who took part can be considered a hero of World War II. We would like to thank all of the veterans of World War II for their dedication to their country and for putting their lives on the line to protect our country.